Imperfects presents a very special episode. Sit back, relax, and grab yourself your own cup of vulnerability. This is the Vulnerabilitea House. It's tea time.
It's tea time.
Who's thirsty? Tea time. Look, God, the second time in 2 weeks. This is getting a little bit regular for my liking.
Well, it's very nice to be back in it. We're not in the same tea house, obviously. We're in our own remote, isolated tea houses.
Yeah.
But we did get we did end the last episode by saying we had an exciting gift we wanted to talk about. Josh, you've got it right there in front of you.
Well, we did end the episode like that, but then I cut it out of the final edit, so no one else would have heard that.
And obviously last episode where I revealed that really dark secret, which Josh cut out. But yeah. But no.
So, but what I have with me is we received an amazing gift last time from Tenant. 10 out of 10.
10 out of 10. Yep.
Yeah.
Rob 10 out of 10.
Yeah. And we've received another gift from someone called Catherine, and she hasn't really given any more. That's all I know is Catherine. And
Yeah.
it's
Madonna. Yeah. Catherine. I mean, I guess if you're going to go with a single name brand, I don't know if Catherine's necessarily. I mean, it's a great name, don't get me wrong, but like just
kind
like
of the cut through.
the hit new single from Catherine. No, I'm taking the piss out. I mean, I love the name Catherine. Kathy, Kate, Catho, Rin, all the versions of Catherine I love.
Well, Catho sent us a box of not just a little bit of tea, but she sent us a beautiful card that says "You are my cup of tea" on the front, and a really lovely letter that's too long to read on the inside, but it was really beautiful. And too long to read on air, I should say. I have read
it. Bloody Gen Y.
And in there was 3 boxes of tea. So an English breakfast, a calming tea, and an immunity tea.
That is amazing.
3 tea mugs and 3 infusers.
I can't wait to get my hands on that. Thank you, Catho. That's extremely nice of you.
Oh.
And there also was a packet of biscuits, but they're no longer with us.
Right. So you have time to eat the biscuits, just not read the card.
Well, I'm Gen X, so I will make the time to read it, Catho, the card, when I wander into Josh's studio next. So
I have read it.
Don't worry, we'll be read.
But I thought you guys can. Obviously, the idea was that we would have this tea together at the next vulnerability, but we can't do that at the moment. So should I have one of them?
Yeah.
Or wait?
Yeah. No, you have one. You absolutely break the seal. The biscuits. Oh, that's the tea.
That's the tea.
Oh, that's the tea. That's the tea.
The biscuits are very much no more.
Okay, sure.
I've gone for a calming tea.
Beautiful.
While you're doing that, Josh, I just thought I'd...
Yeah, definitely talk about some important stuff, Hugh, while he's rattling around the plastic.
Could you hold it any closer to the microphone by any chance? Just so we can get the sound effect of you opening a tea bag.
But like seriously though, Catherine, it is very, very kind. Like all joking aside, I mean that to send a full that would have cost a bit of coin.
Yeah, it's really
that would have
lovely.
Cost some money. That's so nice. Thank you very much.
Classic Catho.
It is classic Catho. I mean, it even came actually in the mail before we spoke about 10 out of 10. So it's not even like she was inspired by the gift giving from 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
She just laughed her own bat. I mean, no doubt now we'll receive hundreds of gifts probably. Oh, God. Wouldn't we hate that?
I reckon 10 out of 10 and Catho would get on very nicely.
Yeah, absolutely. Talk about all the gifts they've sent.
I do before this is the Vulnerabilitea House, obviously, and it's Josh's go today in the tea house. But I think it's a good time to bring up one thing that's in the last few weeks, I've just received a flood of messages that have been about Josh, and I just want to share. I just want to share three of my favourite, because I know what it's like before you step into the Vulnerability House. You can feel nervous, you can feel a little bit anxious, a little bit worried. My aim in these three, Josh, is just to soothe it, just to build your self-esteem so you feel good. So
he's already drinking calming tea. What else do you want him to have? Like, he's already...
Well, he's going to the next level. He's going to be very ready for this. So
okay, here we go.
He'll be calm and he'll have good self-esteem. So these are just three of my favourite messages. The first one I got from someone called Liza through Instagram, and she said, "Hey Hugh," and this is after the podcast we put out, just the three of us, on Sunday. She said, "Hey Hugh, after today's pod, I'm just wondering if you guys have considered changing the name of your podcast to Josh and the Imperfects."
It's a really good idea.
It is a good idea.
It's a great... and no idea is a bad idea in a brainstorm, except that. I mean, I don't know if... I couldn't hear my name in that title, so I'm not sure about that. But interesting suggestion.
Yeah. So the other message that I love that I got was it's... I think this is a genuine message. It came from Claire. I think it was... I don't think she was taking the piss or being funny. I think it was serious. She said, "Hey Hugh, great ep again. Josh is so amazing to listen to. He's actually now my favourite person on the podcast."
Whoa. This is bullshit.
But my third and final message, but also sorry, I've had a lot more than three, but there's just three of my favourites. My absolute favourite comes from a guy called Phil. Very quick message, just 5 words. And it was, "What does Josh look like?"
Wow. Great question.
That's it. What does he look like?
With a question mark at the end?
No. It was nude. It wasn't.
Interesting.
There was no grammar on it. It was just
what does Josh look like?
Yeah, that's it. It was almost like a frustrated statement. What does Josh look like?
If you were Hugh, have you replied yet?
No, I didn't get back. I didn't get back to Phil.
Can we quickly draft a reply? How would you describe what does Josh look like? Like, it's a tough way. It's tough to describe that. If you were to have a go,
I don't think I can play along in this.
You know, Hugh, this is because you're gonna have to reply at some point.
I may
it's
not.
A good question.
I may not write back. I might just send a photo. That's probably the easiest way to go.
Let's just say you had to explain it with words.
Beautiful, thick, brown, golden.
Thick. Oh, his hair. Gotcha. Look, thanks for the message. Beautiful, thick. That'll do it. Hope it helped. Thanks for listening.
I would say beautiful golden brown thick hair. Long.
This is really awkward.
I would say
it's great.
Blue eyes. I would say strong looking.
Oh.
Not really like me. I don't know. Phil looks like what I look like, but not like me.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say we look like...
You know what the follow-up message to that is. What do you look like?
That would be an extraordinary conversation to find myself in.
Oh, it'd be amazing.
Ryan, what was the message that you got one about Josh as well? What was the one that you got?
It was... Well, I'm going to read it out.
I think we can probably just move on to the vulnerability.
No.
It's good for you, Josh. This is good. It's going to put you in a good place to do your vulnerability.
Here we go. So this was from Maddie. Maddie wrote, this is about the last episode. The best. Needed this so much. Josh is the frickin' king. What he said legit made me cry. I just played it to my year 11 and 12s and they just couldn't stop agreeing and smiling. Thank you for bringing some joy to so many.
There you go,
Josh, you're the frickin' king.
There you go.
That's
all from the guy whose job it is to make sure our microphones work and our recordings.
I
know. I do.
That's incredible.
I do. I know this is going to frustrate people enormously because they're just here for Josh and they just want to hear Josh talk. But I think what we haven't done, which we need to do on the topic of vulnerability, is actually talk about what it is and what it isn't. Because I have this fear that I bumped into a guy the other day. I was actually at the AS track running, and this guy stopped me to say that he really enjoys the podcast and said, I'm finding he said, I love listening to the Vulnerability House, but it makes me nervous because he said the thought of sharing my real story with my work friends or my friends, or it just makes me feel sick. And I just don't know if I understand vulnerability is important. I just don't think I can do it. And it made me realize that perhaps what we're modeling is that being vulnerable is telling everyone your story or telling stuff you're insecure about or talking about your imperfections, and that's it. And I thought it might be worth just going through a couple of things that it's not and a couple of things that it can be, just so people realize it's not just that one-dimensional, here you go. So I've just got a list of things here I wrote down that I wanted to mention, if that's okay, everyone. I'm sorry to do this before Josh is going to speak. I'll only take 3 minutes, and then I promise Josh will be you'll listen to Josh. So here are my key sort of points, I guess, on vulnerability. So acts of vulnerability are not the same for everyone. So there's no universal list of actions or practical steps. Being vulnerable is choosing to be your authentic self in situations where you don't know the outcome. So I'll give you an example of what a friend of mine the other day is 38, and for the first time in his life, he's single. He's going on Tinder, and that it's taken him like 3 years to have the courage to do that. Whereas another one of our mates who knows him really well was like, how is that scary? It's the greatest thing in the world. And so there's just an example there of two people who, what vulnerability looks like to someone is very different to someone else. So
yeah, okay.
Me, a lot of the time sharing parts of my life, people say, oh my gosh, you're so vulnerable. I don't find that as vulnerable doing that. I'm kind of used to it a lot of the time, but I know a lot of people would find that very, very vulnerable. So so what's vulnerable for one person may not be for the next person. Okay, the next one. Vulnerable acts are not always sharing. So you don't have to be sharing something about yourself in order to be vulnerable. So we had Dr. Billy Garvey on the podcast, pediatrician, and he talked about how when your child's upset, the first thing you need to do is just validate how they're feeling and help them discover the emotion. And the last thing you do is to solve the problem for them. I've been thinking about that a lot recently, and I've realised that's actually...
Same.
Yeah, that's actually all of us. It's not just for kids. It's anyone who's in distress. And Penny and I had the perfect example of it the other night. I had a moment where I was so stressed about this book that I'm writing because the deadline is, it was 2 weeks ago and I'm not there yet. And I was so stressed and worried about it and sort of worked up about it. And I told Penny, she just put Benji down. She came downstairs and I just told her all the things. I just unleashed all my stress and anxiety. And she straight away, with the same level of anxiety and stress, tried to solve the problem. She says, okay, well, just okay, I'm going to have to do...
Yeah. Wrong, Penny. Nice try, Penny, but you screwed up.
And so we just sort of clashed for about 5 minutes over this. For some reason, I just wasn't receiving these solutions very well. And I ended up just sort of walking off, and I was like, I need to go for a walk. And as I was walking off, I heard Penny go, well done, Penny, you did well there, or something. She just like gave herself a bit of a spray. And I came back 5 minutes later and we were totally fine. And she said, I don't know what to do in those situations. Like, what did I... And I said, I said, funnily enough, I think it's like what Billy was saying the other day. Do you know what I would have loved? I just would have loved for you to validate what I was feeling, just to like say, I get that must be so stressful, that must be so upsetting. She said, that's so hard for me to do. And the reason I'm telling that story is for Penny, that's vulnerability. To like sit in that discomfort with me and say, I can tell this is really stressing you out. I can tell this is upsetting you.
And not actively fix not have to think of solutions to fix the problem.
Yeah. So she's not even saying anything there, really. Like, all I'm asking her to do is just to listen. And that for Penny in that moment was a really vulnerable thing to do. And she said, I'm going to work on it, but that's vulnerability to her. So my point is, vulnerability is not always sharing. It's not always saying, everyone, here's something about me. Sometimes it's sitting back and listening. You know, maybe on social media right now, you vehemently disagree with someone's point of view and you're just going to write something abusive to them or argue with them. But maybe vulnerability to you is just sitting back and going, me writing something is not going to do a thing here. I'm just going to be vulnerable. I'm just going to sit with this right now. That could be vulnerable.
Be a pretty disappointing episode from Josh if he just listened for the next 10 minutes. Well, Hugh said he could do it.
The next one is words are not the only method for how to be vulnerable. And I guess that's kind of similar in a way, but I'll give you a couple of examples. The point of what I'm trying to say is your actions can be vulnerable. I think of two things that come to mind straight away. Season 2, I think it was, we had Katrina Bissett on the podcast, Olympic 800-metre runner, and I told the story, and we made light of it, and we joked about it a lot, because it is quite a funny story about how I first started training with Katrina and the other girls who were getting ready for the Olympics. My first session I did with them, by turning up and deciding to train with these girls with Peter Fortune, Kathy Freeman's coach.
Peter Fortune.
It's the most vulnerable I've felt in so long. And it wasn't sharing, it wasn't talking, it wasn't words, it was running. That exercising with a group of girls.
It's sort of putting yourself out there, isn't it? I forget what Brené Brown says, but she obviously puts it in a really good way in relation to like leaning into your discomfort and like putting yourself in a place. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I can tell you what it is. So exactly.
Oh, great.
Brené Brown says that it's vulnerability is the willingness to show up and be seen despite uncertain outcomes. So it's taking an emotional risk. So yeah, that's
emotional risk. That's what I was trying to remember.
Yeah, that's what it is. So, and the last one I'd just say, being vulnerable should never ever be forced. That's a really important one. If you don't want to be vulnerable, then you shouldn't feel obliged to. Genuine vulnerability isn't forced for the sake of being vulnerable. I think about work I did with Port Adelaide Football Club, where we did a big thing on vulnerability, and it was opt-in. Like, you didn't have to do it. It was share your story if you feel comfortable. The purpose of being vulnerable should always be genuine connection. That should always be your purpose. If you find yourself in a situation where I heard someone tell a story once that they were at a hens night, and then this all the activities happened, then all of a sudden it turned into this like question and answer thing. Everyone had to answer really tough questions about their relationship. And everyone was doing it. This girl said, I didn't know people that well. I didn't know the group that well. And all of a sudden I had to answer these questions. But I felt like I had to do it. She said, I felt sick for the next few days with what I'd told people. I dreaded the wedding. That wasn't a connecting experience for her. If the purpose is genuine connection, which remember we're hardwired to do, that's why we're on the planet, to connect with people. If the purpose of being vulnerable is to connect, then go for it in the right place. If not, forced vulnerability does not count. Having said that, Josh, your turn.
Yeah.
No, but that's. I think that's a few things we should have said probably at our first one. But there you go.
Well, that is also part of the reason why, when we thought of doing this Vulnerability House, we always put out 3 cards. And 3 cards is so there is a choice. It's not like, here's a tough question, you have to answer it. You know, hopefully, there's always the choice that who's ever picking the cards, there's always the option to choose one which is a little less intense than one of the other ones. That's the intention. Because you just we'd hate to put any of us in a situation where you have to answer a tough question.
Yeah, and we have also, it's probably for the podcast we don't share this, but there has been times where we've pulled out 3 questions and gone, I can't do this, or like I did one episode and said, you know what, I don't feel comfortable telling the world this. Can we not release this? And so we didn't. So this is not forced. This is like, it is a safe. It's within a safe bounds for all of us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's hit the music. Vulnerability House is in session. How you feeling, Josh?
Very nervous. Like, more nervous the closer we've gotten to the. As Hugh was going through that list, I was like,
sorry.
Just made it worse.
Sorry.
No, that's fun. It's really good. Good to build the tension.
It's really good. He means that.
All right. So
no, that was actually great, Hugh. Thank you for that. I actually learnt a lot from that, to be honest. So thank you.
I've
got the cards. I've got the bluey cards. I will give
questions written on them. Yep.
Do we want to know which? Do we care about which animal? Or which character it is as well, or just the question?
Well, I don't, but I know Hugh does.
No, I just say it. But I don't care, to be honest.
Okay.
Yeah.
First card. So,
geez, we're getting lax, aren't we?
What is a time you felt truly lonely or alone? Have we had that one before?
Rings a bell.
Yeah, maybe.
I'm hoping you don't answer that, because that's going to make me feel very sad hearing that. But feel free if that's your one.
Second card. What is something that seems unachievable to you? Okay.
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah. Okay, and the third card. Who have you been envious of?
Well, we've had that one before.
Okay. I probably
we haven't answered it.
Definitely
we
didn't.
haven't. I've drawn that before. I haven't answered it. I didn't answer it.
Didn't shuffle this deck properly, I think. Okay. The alone one is...
Oh, no. Oh, Josh.
That story's not that good. So it's probably not an envious... I reckon I'm going to go with something that feels unachievable to you.
Mm-hmm.
That second one.
Yep.
That's strongest thing that jumps to mind. And it's weirdly related to what Hugh said before about me being thick.
Oh, God.
I think I've alluded to this on the podcast before, but I've never really, and I'm interested to know if it's a family thing or not. And I don't really have. I'm not sure if I've got really strong stories to go with this or any kind of strong resolution, because I think I'm still very much in it. But I've never really something I could never achieve. I can never see myself being fit, enjoying exercise, or having a body that I look at and go, yeah, that's good enough. That's good enough, or that's good.
Mm-hmm.
I've always, not always, since I've been probably about 18, I reckon, I've always had a really weird relationship with exercise, and a pretty negative one, pretty bad one. Probably that cliche of deciding every few months I'm going to get fit and I'm going to get a six-pack, and never even getting close to achieving it. I remember when I was a lot younger, I'd just been dating Soph not very long, and for some reason I decided to go for it. It was probably in one of these spurts of I'm going to get fit and look amazing. I remember going for a run at her house, heading off, and I ran maybe a kilometre, 800 metres, and I just broke down in tears. And as I was running, I was getting more emotional and more angry and more worked up. And I just broke down in tears and got so many emotions rushing all over me. And it was like all the negative thoughts about myself that I'd ever had were just rushing to the front as soon as I started exercising. And that was not an uncommon thing. I remember I used to joke with mates about this, because I've got a lot of friends. My friendship group, I'd say on average, I'd say fitter than average. They love running. They love being fit. They all sport. A lot of them are quite sporty people. And I remember sort of joking with them over the years about how people talk about getting endorphins from exercise and feeling great. And I've always only ever felt the opposite. It's always made me feel about as low about myself as I can. And I love food. So therefore the combo of not really enjoying exercise and loving food has never really made me have a body that I'd be that comfortable taking my t-shirt off at the beach, for example. And every summer I'm like, this is going to be the summer where I do it. Or like for my wedding, I'm going to be in great shape for my wedding. And
this is the wedding where I'm going to look good.
And I never quite get there. Or like for the wedding, I feel like I lost a little bit of weight and then had a bit of a crisis of confidence in the exercise thing, and then ended up putting on more weight, and that's probably heavier than normal at the wedding. I remember, this is when I was about 18, I remember I'd probably had a bit too much to drink, but I was at my best friend's house, or one of my best friends, Rimo, and him and his girlfriend at the time saw this and no one else did, but I was in the front room in his bedroom and I just was crying. And I remember, and this is not what I think now, and this is the statement of a stupid, confused 18-year-old, so I hope it's not offensive to anyone when I say this, but I remember processing my sister's anorexia and saying to them, if I wasn't so lazy, I'd be anorexic too.
Whoa.
And I've never quite known how to process that. I think it was, and so, I don't know, feel free to jump in any point. I can keep going. Recently, about 8 months ago, I was listening to the Chat 10 Looks 3 podcast with Annabelle Crabb and Lee Sales, and I'm a big Annabelle Crabb fan. I think she's incredible. She was talking about how she got into this Couch to 5K app, where it's basically for people who haven't done exercise in a very long time. And I was enjoying listening to her. I really respect her and think she's incredible. And I sort of thought to myself, right, well, I should stop comparing myself to 33-year-old men who run 5 times a week and who are all fitness people and have played sport forever, and maybe comparing myself and just reframing it to a woman in her late 40s who hasn't run in 20 years and going, well, if she can do it, I can do it. Maybe that's a healthy thing to do. So I did that. I started doing the app. I got through the app. I absolutely loved it. I've started to feel really good about myself. I thought I'm running and I can actually run 5Ks now. And then all my friends.
Yeah, you were inspiring me. I mean, not that I did anything about it, but I was inspired. Like, not to actually run, but I was so impressed. Yeah,
oh, thank you. And I all my mates who go on runs every Tuesday and Thursday at 6 a.m. There's a group of them, and some of them listen to the podcast. They're some of my closest friends. They'd been saying you should come along, join the running club, do the thing. And for a long time, I'm like, I know this is not going to be good for me. It's going to be a bad idea. It's going to break me if I do this, because I'm doing this run thing on my own. I listen to music by myself. I've got a formula that works. And one morning, Charlie woke up at 5. It was a Tuesday morning. I'm like, I'm going to go. So I went along to the running thing and I did the session with them. I got through it. It was so hard, so much harder than what I usually do. And then they invited me to the group chat that they've got. And every Tuesday and Thursday, there's a message that goes around on that night saying, someone just writes in, and then people who can do it just write in. And I just couldn't bring myself to write in. I didn't want to go. And I felt this, and it became this thing every Tuesday and Thursday, this pang of guilt. And it was nothing on them. They were trying to, I know a few of them especially know that I've got an issue with exercise, and they were trying to do it in the gentlest way possible. But since going to that one session, my running has dropped so far to now I do it once a week, if that, and I can feel it tailing off, and I don't understand it. I don't understand my relationship with exercise, and I struggle with it. So wow. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I got to be so massively relatable. Like, we sort of hang out in circles of people, I think, who exercise obsessively, and we always talk about the benefits of exercise. So I think that's something that is very much an expectation you have, that part of being happy and part of living a happy, fulfilled life is exercise, is exercising. And I reckon you're and I'm not trying to solve anything here. Just
careful, careful, Mr. Fix It.
We need a sound effect for that. We really need a sound effect as soon as someone tries to fix something. There should be a sound effect.
We should get like the sound effect of like, whoa, like, a cowboy on a horse. Easy.
So the only reason I was saying was that I totally and utterly understand why you feel that you should be exercising, because everyone in our friendship groups does it. So the whole world's, especially at the moment, it's like exercise so you'll get through this pandemic. And I'm certainly very obsessive with my running as well. So I feel like you're surrounded by a lot of it. And so I totally understand the confusion you'd be having around that.
Oh,
sure.
I relate to it so much. Like I'm not triggered in the same way that you are. I don't think. Well, I'm not, and I think especially now, actually, body image aside, I think the exercise thing is a big thing at the moment, because like one of the few things we can do is exercise, and like Daniel Andrews is like, you can have 2 hours of exercise, and I find myself going, that's okay. Yeah, all good. I'll do it tomorrow. Yeah, can I bank him? The only 2 things that I've ever found that speak to me on a fitness level enough that I'll do it regularly and look forward to it. Yeah, it's not my Vulnerabilitea House, but the only 2 sports or activities are netball and Pilates.
Nice.
They're the You're laughing here, I can see you, even though you're silent.
I played netball for a long time. I understand the joys of netball.
But it's like, I have a few friends who are so into fitness in the same way, and they all, whenever they try and give me advice, I kind of switch off a little bit because I'm like, it's not going to work. It's just not going to work. Like, I hear you. Yes, boxing. I get it. Boxing's probably really good. Yeah, start running a little bit. Yeah, get an exercise bike. Awesome. All those things. I bet they work for some people. But I just instantly go like, I won't do it.
Yeah.
I won't do it.
I know exactly what you mean. I'm yet to, except for this period where this sort of, in this app, I was doing it a few times a week. That's the first time I think in my entire life where I've enjoyed doing it on my own agency and for myself. But then, like, I can hear myself, this voice in my head, especially about this, my friends and the running thing, that I'm assuming that they're thinking the worst about me, which is them going, "Oh, typical. Like, he was never going to commit anyway. He's useless." He's not. He always says he's going to do something, never follows through. Like, all this negative talk. And I doubt they're saying, I mean, maybe they are, but I doubt they're saying that. But it was like I was destined to fail at that morning running club thing because I was going to confirm the worst suspicions of myself. And the truth is that they're all super fit and they're training for like marathons and stuff and half marathons. And that's something I don't want to do that anyway. Like, that's more than I would like to commit to.
Yeah.
So it's a false comparison. I don't know. The other thing is that I was a half decent athlete at high school. Like, I did aths.
That was my next thing. I was going to ask you about that because you were a very, very good sprinter at school. Very good.
I did it. I competed and I represented the school in it. And
did you run with clenched fists or like flat hands?
I've actually
because at school that was like the telltale sign of a good runner. It's like if you run with flat hands, like you're cutting through the air. Like the guys who ran like that, I was just like, you guys are kings of the school.
I'm proud to say I was cutting through the air when
you were?
Yeah.
You're king of the school, Josh.
But I remember this guy, Adam, who was a really good sprinter, and he was telling me how like really good sprinters are just incredibly relaxed in their face, and it's about conserving all that energy into one forward momentum. And
That's what you can say.
And I thought I was pretty relaxed. I'm like, yes, I'm a relaxed runner. And then at the finals, there's this photo taken of me, and I don't think you've ever seen more veins popping out of a neck and a redder face and a tenser face.
How your head didn't explode off your shoulders, I have no idea.
Yeah, but anyway,
it was the start of the race. But anyway,
yeah. But
so Josh, at what point? So if you were like really into athletics, then like at what point did you? Is it after school?
Yeah, I would. My armchair psychologist interpretation of it is that I was doing athletics at school because Hugh and Georgia, brother and sister, both did athletics and were both extremely good at it, and at lots of different activities. And I was doing that to compete with them and try and follow in their footsteps and impress other people. And it was always about other people and not really about myself. And so the moment I didn't have to do it anymore, I stopped doing it. But then then I don't know what happens with the armchair psychology after that.
Yeah. I mean, like, I remember, I think this probably happens regularly, but after high school, because in school, you have to do sport. Well, in my school, we had to do sport. You had to, choose a sport in winter and summer. And so you're always sort of active in high school. And then as soon as school stopped, that system stops.
Yeah.
Like the system of like regular sport stops, and I blew up. Like not in a big way, but like I definitely put on a lot of weight, comparatively to what I was. Because I've never been an individual exerciser. I'd only ever played like team sports that were like organised sports. And I've never, and I guess that's the same thing with like netball and even Pilates to a certain degree. They're organised classes or whatever. I've always found it really hard to just go for a run. Like I'll do it for 3 or 4 weeks. And I remember actually, sorry to just take over for a second, but I remember when we went and did the show, the first gap year show, the Hamish and Andy's gap year show. We were living in New York, and first morning we were there. We were living in Brooklyn, And the first morning, had jet lag, woke up really early. Remember jet lag? That was a thing 2 years ago. And so had jet lag, and I woke up and I was like, I'm going to go for a run around Central Park. and so got up, took the train at 6 a.m. or whatever to Central Park, ran around Central Park a bit, felt amazing, got back to, the apartments and where we were staying and went to work, told everyone that I did it. Told everyone. I was like, oh no, I just think it's something that I'll just do every morning. I just think it's get up really early, go to Central Park and run around. Felt like $1 million just telling people. That's almost I reckon there should be a gym where all it is just telling people that you exercise. I would pay a lot of money to get that word out fast. Anyway, but obviously then as soon as the jet lag wore off, I just stopped running. But then because I told everyone, I felt like an absolute goose.
Yeah, I think you're sort of onto a thing that's gotten me recently is that I felt like I wanted to be exactly what you're saying there. I want to be that person that's I went for a run today because I wanted to and it felt great and it's part of my routine and it just makes me feel alive. And I also definitely have some issues with my body that I'd like to have a better body. I'm not proud of the way I look physically. I don't like the way clothes look on me and I don't really feel comfortable whipping the top off at the beach, for example. And I thought that with this app and with my running over the last year, I'm I think I'm becoming that person who runs a lot. And now I've stopped and I'm it's another example of you failing at this. So yeah.
I think so often with your exercise, knowing the history of your exercise, so often when you started, it's all or nothing for you. And then when it's nothing, it's pass or fail or yeah, you're so harsh on yourself. You'll stop for a week or a couple of weeks and go, I failed, as opposed to I've been busy with work, Charlie's not sleeping, not good for me to run, I'll pick it back up again in a couple of weeks. You just give yourself a fail mark straight away and then again, I'm not trying to fix it, but I definitely know that about you. You're very quick to go, no, I failed that. And then you'll think about it other times you haven't succeeded with it as opposed to thinking about it's just this ongoing thing with exercise. It's not you're not passing or failing. You're just doing what you can when you can. Really, that's sort of
definitely. And I'm trying to get better. But
it's a very.
I think other people. I'm sure there are people. Not everyone has a healthy relationship with exercise, so I'm sure there must be people out there who feel similar.
I would say majority of people don't.
What, insecure about their bodies? Yeah, I reckon there might be a few. I reckon there are there are $1 billion industries relying upon it.
But even the really fit people you see, they're probably more insecure about their body than anyone else. Because they obsess over the small things. I've found the fitter I've got in the last few years, the more obsessed I've become about my body. I've spoken about it before, but so when you say you wonder if someone else is similar, I'm sure everyone would have been in the same boat. But I think more to your point, it's the thing around your journey of exercise. You don't enjoy it, and it causes you more anxiety and more stress actually doing it. And I think you will hear from a lot of people now that you're on Instagram again. I have no doubt.
Yeah, I'm about to do a before and after photo shoot for Instagram.
But I have no doubt.
Topless shot coming soon. This is how I'm launching my my fitness brand.
Yeah, don't you tempt us, Josh. That is too tempting. I would like to say that I know, Hugh, it's maybe harder for you to say this, but Josh, you are a beautiful man. You are a very attractive man. I can say that with full heterosexual confidence. Not that that's important, but I think what is important is that it's always awkward to say this stuff, but you are one of the few people I think that I know who have unconditional compassion, empathy, and kindness to people whenever I've seen you, to me or to anyone. And I just think your ability to never be cynical of things or of people, I think I think you're naturally not cynical, which I think it seems like a weird thing. but I think that's a pretty great thing. And you're it's just the positivity that you bring into a room. And I know you sometimes think that you're a downer or you're negative or you're feeling down. I know you've had hard times, but what I see is just an extremely positive person who appreciates life, and I think even more so since you've had Charlie. And I just wanted to say that because I just want you to know that it's like, I'd love to see you with your top off for starters, but even with your top on, you bring so much positivity into everyone's lives that you're in.
Oh, thanks, Ryan.
And I know you weren't asking for that, but it just felt like that. It felt important to say that because more and more I think like that's what people remember. People aren't top on or off. That's what people remember. I think when that's how they think about you.
Mm. Well,
beautifully said, Ryan.
Thank you. That's incredibly. Yeah, I don't know what to say. That's incredibly kind. Thank you.
Well, I'll only add to that I remember saying this at your 21st. Actually, the day you were born still remains to me, along with the birth of my own kids, as just the happiest day of my life. You coming home from the hospital, and I still have the same feeling when I'm around you as I did that day. I've never once looked at what you look like to decide how I feel about you. I've always had that incredible feeling about you've just made me so happy from the day you're born. And yeah, I mean, all this stuff intellectually about what really counts, but I do. It's great you've shared that because I do think it's going to, a lot of people will empathise with that. So yeah, thank you.
Oh, thank you. That's incredibly kind. And yeah, I guess this episode's just been a real compliment sandwich for me.
Yep.
top and tailed with really lovely things said by people. So
well, you've earned it, mate. You've bloody earned it.
Not through exercise, through other
take
ways.
Your bloody top off.
Yeah. I also want to say that I think Lee Sales is brilliant.
Oh yeah, sorry.
I'm just so worried if she heard that she'd go.
True.
And she is brilliant. So I don't think they'd listen to our podcast.
No, you're right. That came out. I should have said both of them. They are both brilliant. But it was Annabelle Crabb who was talking about the running, so that's why I mentioned her. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So if you had to choose Annabelle Crabb or Lee Sales, who would you choose, Josh? Who's your favourite?
Yeah, he's so empathetic.
I can't answer that question. I can't. It's like your favourite Beatle.
Exactly. Same thing.
Yeah.
Well, Josh, that was great. Thank you for that. It was so tempting throughout that whole thing. I don't know how you felt, Hugh, but it's so tempting to say, no, you're not.
Yeah.
Like, you look great.
Yeah.
It's so hard. But I guess that's the whole, like what you were saying before, Hugh, like that's the whole point. It's like, it's what you think is the truth. Like it's like that it's just recognizing how they're feeling. It's being present to that as opposed to providing a solution or an answer or making them feel better.
It's a vulnerable thing to do, like to sit with someone in that moment, just let them feel it. Like that's vulnerability as well. So
yeah.
Yes. Gosh, these are meant to be like 15, 20-minute little offerings that we're going to put out and have turned into
monsters.
I think it's an important episode. So I thank you, Josh. We're very lucky to have sat with you through that.
Thank you for listening.
Very good. Well, we just got to have some kind of official finish, don't we?
Yeah. Well, I imagine the music will have kicked in by now.
Yep.
There it is.
It'd be nice to say something as it's like humming away in the background.
What's the next step?
Slightly.
Yeah. Oh, well, we could plug Josh's OnlyFans account. Probably a good way to finish. I assume that's being set up as we speak.
By Phil.
Yeah. By Phil.
Oh, dear.
Great. Oh, well, thanks everyone. We'll see you in a couple of weeks.